Hi, thanks for joining me with the Wilderness of the Monty. So we're going to do a little drift fishing. The lake isn't as cold as I'd like it to be, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm going to be fishing 2 different depths, and I'm going to be using my oars a lot. If you're in a lake where they rent boats, you can do this. You can do this from a kayak, and I catch a lot of fish this way. But so let's get rigged up, and then I'll talk about winter fishing a little bit later. So for this, on this pole, I just have a small split shot, about a size 8 or 10 hook. And then on this pole, I got a heavy slip sinker, a heavier slip sinker. If you look at that, with a swivel, and then a long leader. And I'm going to fish 2 different depths. So when I'm fishing for this, if you see my rigging for reservoir trout, I always use a worm blower. I inflate the crawler. I don't inflate the crawler on this because you want the bait to look as natural as you can in the water. So what I do in this is I cut my crawler in half, or a good portion of it. These aren't that big, so I might have to go with the full one. And then I put it in there. And then I weave it up like the other one, and then I slide that end up on the hook. And the goal is you want your bait to be as straight as possible when it's in the water, so it looks natural. See that? Then I'm going to put this guy out and get my next one ready. And I'm drifting with the wind. So I'm gonna let this out, and I'm gonna start this guy at a certain amount, and this one's gonna flow behind the boat at about 10 or 15 feet of depth. This one I want to drop way down deep. And then once I get my lines in the water, I will manipulate the depth of my baits and what they do using my oars. So on this guy, I'm gonna fish a hole crawler on this one. I'm gonna put it right in the top of it, and I'm gonna thread it up my line. Unlike the other one where I put it in the middle, I'm threading this up the line because I want it to be as straight as possible in the water. I don't want my bait to be all curled up. I want it to be long. Now I'm really gonna have to let the trout eat this to get it, but I want my bait to be as natural as possible. So for this one, I was catching most of my fish trolling pretty deep. I want to try to catch something big. Haven't anything big yet. So I'm gonna count this down, 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna let this go all the way to the bottom, and then I'm gonna crank it up about 5 feet, because I want to see if there's any big browns down there lurking. Because, you know, these browns will hit these night crawlers. It's still sinking. It's deep here. Okay, I'm on the bottom. So I'm going to crank that up so it's not on the bottom. So now I got my baits out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to straighten my boat out, and I have both my lines directly behind the boat. And I'm going to keep my boat straight with using my oars. I'm just gonna watch my lines. And I'm fishing with bait now, so it's good because now I'm going to try to catch a couple fish to eat for lunch. So what I'm doing is I'm rowing with my boat. So if you rent an aluminum boat, make sure if there's not oars in the boat, ask for oars, because you can do this same setup where you have one rod there, and then you use the oars to drift, to keep your boat straight. Now, if you have a boat and you have, like say you have 2 or 3 people in the boat and you have several lines, you can turn the boat sideways with one oar and keep it straight, and all your lines will be coming off the side of the boat, and then you can use one oar on this side of the boat to keep the boat straight so that all of your lines remain straight and you don't get all tangled up. You got to keep the boat from spinning. That's the bottom line. And then so what I like to do is I will keep the boat going like this, and then every now and then I'll give it a big couple of rows and speed up my night crawlers so that I'm actually trolling right now. I'm moving, and then I'll stop. And then I'll let the bait sink back down. See that? I'll let the bait sink. And a lot of times they'll hit it on that rise and that fall. Now in the wintertime, I usually just have one bigger split shot and one smaller split shot. Because the fish will be right on the top, on the surface. Now I've talked about this before, but I'm gonna go over it really quick again. I came up here to shoot cold weather reservoir fishing, but the lake's just not cold enough to fish that way. So in the summertime and when the water's warmer, there's something called a thermocline, and that's an oxygenated layer of water that's about 30 feet down usually, and it's where the warm water on the surface meets the cold water below, and there's a lot of oxygen at that level, and there'll be a lot of plankton, and then the food chain goes up from there all the way up to bigger fish eating smaller fish. Then in the wintertime, when it's cold enough during the day so it doesn't heat the surface water back up, the lake does something called turnover, and that's when you can get a lot of the bigger fish will be right on the surface, and you can drift fish like this, and you can really do well. And when I do that, I sometimes fish a small bobber on one line, and then I'll fish a small bobber and on one line and a small split shot on the other line, and then I'll just go. Oh, there we go. We got one going. So he's hitting it. Let's see if he comes back. You really got to let him have this. I have a whole. He left. Oh, there he goes. There he goes. There he goes. There he goes. Oh, there we go. We got one. So that didn't take long. This fish feels pretty good. Nice rainbow. Perfect size for grilling. I barely got him hooked. He swallowed it. But this is a really productive way to fish if you are fishing from a kayak or you're fishing from a boat. I mean, I just put my lines in the water and I already got one fish, as you can see. When you see the bites start happening, you just got to let them take it. One down. I'm gonna need about 3 or 4 of these guys for a good lunch. So I'm gonna show you again how to do the full crawler, because I just did it and I looked and the audio didn't work. So I gotta do it again. All right, so when you get this full crawler, I want it to look natural in the water, so I put it right into the top of the tip. I guess it's the mouth, which isn't very nice for the worm. And then I put it through, and I hook it through once, put it through, hook it through again, put it through, hook it through again, and then I slide it up the line. So it's nice and straight. See that? And then I'm going to throw this guy out there, give him some distance. This is my shallow runner. So I'm gonna I have one that's riding deep around probably 30 or 40 feet, and then I'm gonna have one that's riding about 10. And now I'm going to row and just watch my lines. I'm gonna do a little bit of trolling here. So right now I'm trolling. I'm just rowing instead of the motor. See that? Got my oars going, and then I'm gonna slow it down. I'm gonna let it sink. Do a little trolling. I'm gonna give this full worm a little bit more distance because I don't want it to be right under the surface. I want it to have some depth. And my lines aren't gonna get crossed because my other one is way down there, and that's just fishing. It's riding at a deeper plane. And you can pick up, in the wintertime, you can sit there and catch 16, 17 inches right on the surface doing this. So the wind has died, so I got to kind of simulate the wind drift with my oars, but this can be a real productive way to fish. So remember, when you're renting that, you can't rent boats up at this lake. You can rent boats at Courtright Reservoir though, which is 10 miles away. If you live in the Fresno area, you live close, and you can rent a boat and just get the oars. Make sure you get the oars, and that way you can set your rods up in the back just like this. Oh, there we go. See, I'm just gonna let him take it. He's hitting it. See that bite? He's biting it. I'm just gonna let him have it. You know, because I'm keeping these rainbows. There we go. There we go. So I should have my limit in no time. There we go. This fish right here is small. That's the perfect size for grilling. See, they're hitting my shallow line. That's the line that's catching all the fish. So when it comes to positioning your boat when you're drift fishing, what I do is, if the wind's blowing in this direction, I take my boat all the way straight into the wind, and then I just drift with what direction the wind's going. Right now the wind has stopped blowing. so that's the wind has stopped blowing, so that makes it a little tough. So if you don't have oars, you're kind of in trouble. If you got a kayak, you can control whatever you're doing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a good push, really get my worms going, and then I'm going to slow it down. So you want to get your boat straight into the wind, stop, position, and then just drift with the wind. And if you get a good drift where you can go the whole distance of the lake, I mean, you can just drift and then just go straight back up and then drift again. You want to get to where the wind is coming from, and you want to just drift with the wind, because that's the direction the food's going. And the wind is something that I try to utilize oh, there we go again. There we go. He's hitting it. He's hitting it. See, I'm just gonna let him have it, because he's gonna sit there and eat this thing until it's gone. Oh, there we go. There we go. Nice rainbow. He's gonna do good on the fire. There's that fish. So I catch one more fish and then we're done for the day. Because I got my limit. I've only been fishing for 15 minutes. So the wind has stopped completely, which is horrible for drift fishing, because in order to drift fish, you need to drift. But that's okay, because we have oars today, so we can simulate the wind. And that should work just fine. So I'm looking for one more fish, and then I want to go back in, clean them, get a good fire going, and then we're gonna make some trout. Oh, there we go. There we go. And that's the day of fishing. So I got my limit, my rods are in, I'm done fishing for the day. I'm going to go in, clean these fish, and then we're gonna grill some fish. So as you can see, drift fishing can be really effective, and hopefully this winter I'm gonna have a chance to do some winter drift fishing. I like to do it in Ice House Lake, and I'm gonna catch a lot of fish that are, in the 16-inch class, you know, just bigger fish, better fish. These fish aren't very big, but they're good for cooking. They're good for grilling. They're the perfect size. So just get into the wind. You'll get it going. But I have my limit, so I can't fish anymore. So I gotta go. We're done for the day. Done for the trip. So we're gonna head back to camp. We're gonna call it a day. Thanks for joining me with Wilderness with Amani. It's been a real treat.